You know that feeling when you're lying in bed at 2 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, and your brain just won't shut off because you're mentally calculating whether you can actually afford that car repair that just popped up? Or when you're scrolling through your bank app for the third time today, not because you forgot your balance, but because you're hoping somehow the numbers magically changed. Sound familiar? Well, what if I told you that financial freedom has almost nothing to do with how much you earn and everything to do with 5 specific behaviors that wealthy people do automatically, but most people never learn? Most people think building wealth is about landing a 6-figure job or getting lucky with investments. But here's the thing they're missing. I've watched people making $48,000 a year achieve financial freedom, while others earning triple that amount stay trapped in financial anxiety. My name is Matt, and I spend way too much time thinking about money psychology, behavioral finance, and why some people seem to effortlessly build wealth and sleep soundly at night, while others make good money, but constantly feel broke. If you're someone who wants to understand the actual mechanics behind wealth building instead of just hearing generic advice about cutting lattes, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it ends up helping you finally break the cycle of financial stress. Before we dive into these 5 specific habits, let me ask you something. What do you think is the biggest factor that separates people who achieve financial freedom from those who stay stuck? If you set income, you're not alone. That's what most people believe. They think the difference is salary, inheritance, or getting lucky with a startup. The truth is wealth building doesn't work the way most people think it does. Here's what actually happens. There are invisible behavioral thresholds that once you cross them, everything changes. Your entire relationship with money transforms. It's not about making more, it's about crossing these specific lines that flip the game entirely. Most people never cross them because they don't even know they exist. Think about it this way. You know, when you're pushing a shopping cart that has one terrible wheel that just fights you the entire time, you're shoving it forward, it's veering left, you're course correcting, and the whole experience is exhausting. But then you switch to a cart with good wheels, and suddenly you're gliding. Same effort, completely different result. That's what happens when you implement these 5 money habits. You're not working harder. The system just works with you instead of against you. Now here's what makes these habits so powerful. They're not about deprivation or sacrifice or living on rice and beans for 10 years. They're about setting up systems that make wealth building automatic and honestly almost boring. And that might sound like self-help nonsense, but stick with me because this is where things get really practical. But here's where it gets really interesting. The difference isn't just mathematical. The real magic happens in your brain. When you implement these habits, your psychology shifts from scarcity to abundance, from reactive to proactive, from constantly stressed to genuinely confident about money. And that mental transformation is actually what creates the wealth, not just the tactics themselves. Let me paint you a picture of what happens psychologically when you're stuck in the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle, even if you're making decent money. Your brain operates in survival mode. Every financial decision triggers a stress response. Can I afford this? What if something breaks? What if I lose my job? Your mental bandwidth gets consumed by constant financial anxiety. Research from Princeton University shows that financial stress reduces cognitive capacity by about 13 IQ points, which is the difference between average and superior intelligence. You're not making poor decisions because you're bad with money. You're making survival decisions because your brain is stuck in threat mode. But something remarkable happens when you implement these 5 habits. You gain what I call psychological breathing room. Your brain shifts from reactive to strategic. Instead of constantly putting out fires, you start building towards something. The anxiety lessens, your decision-making improves, and you start seeing opportunities instead of just threats. Research from the Federal Reserve found that people with just 3 months of emergency savings report significantly higher life satisfaction and better mental health than those without, regardless of their income level. This isn't just about feeling less stressed, though that's obviously huge. It's about fundamentally changing your identity. You stop being someone who's stressed about money and become someone who's building wealth. That shift in how you see yourself changes everything. Here's where the math starts getting really exciting. Let's say you're making $55,000 a year, which is pretty close to the median individual income in the US. You implement these 5 habits, and one of them has you automatically investing $450 per month into a low-cost index fund that averages 8% annually, which is actually conservative based on historical stock market returns. In your first year, you've got about $5,400. Not life-changing yet. By year 2, you're at $11,000. By year 3, you're at $18,000. That's 3 years of discipline. It's not easy, and frankly, most people give up somewhere along the way because the progress feels too slow. But here's the part that will blow your mind. By year 10, you've got $82,000. By year 15, you're at $156,000. But watch what happens in year 20. You hit $336,000. Now here's what's insane. In that 20th year alone, your investments grew by about $27,000. You personally contributed $5,400, but your money earned over $20,000 just from compound growth. Once you hit $250,000 invested, you're generating $20,000 to $30,000 a year in growth without doing anything. The same amount that took you nearly 4 years to save initially is now happening automatically every single year. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Matt, but wealthy people probably have access to better investment opportunities or financial advisors that help them beat the market and accelerate all this. And while there is some truth to that at the ultra-high end, it's not what's driving this phenomenon for regular people building wealth. The real secret is that wealthy people automate these behaviors before they feel comfortable. They don't wait until they have extra money lying around. They make investing non-negotiable from day one, and they adjust their lifestyle around it. Someone making $50,000 implements the same automatic investment system as someone making $150,000. The amounts are different, but the behavior is identical. But here's the part that most people completely miss, and it might be the most important point in this entire video. The money itself isn't even the most valuable thing you're building. It's who you become in the process. Think about it. You spend 5, 10, 15 years watching yourself keep a commitment to your future self. You prove to yourself month after month that you can delay gratification. You build unshakable discipline. You fundamentally rewired your brain and built the most important skill you'll ever develop: the ability to prioritize future you over present you. This changes how you behave in subtle but powerful ways. That $50 unexpected expense that would have derailed your entire week 2 years ago barely registers now. Your car needs a repair? Annoying, but not a crisis. You're not stressed about small financial hiccups because you've built a foundation. Your perception completely shifts. You stop seeing money as this scarce resource you're desperately clinging to and start seeing it as a tool you're strategically deploying. Even better, you start noticing opportunities that were always there, but you couldn't act on before. A friend mentions they're launching a business and looking for a small investor. You can write a check. A career opportunity requires 3 months of training with reduced pay. You can swing it. Your options expand exponentially. Now, let's talk about what happens to your career once you hit this milestone. There's a concept in personal finance called walking away money. It's the amount you need to know that you could walk away from your job tomorrow if it became truly unbearable. For most people, that number is around 6 to 12 months of expenses, somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000. But here's what's fascinating. The moment you have walking away money, you almost never need to use it. Your entire negotiating position changes. You're not desperate. You can advocate for yourself. You can push back on unreasonable demands. Research from the University of Chicago found that employees with substantial savings negotiate salaries that are on average 18% higher than those without, controlling for experience and credentials. But here's where most people mess this up. They finally build that cushion. Then they immediately inflate their lifestyle to match. They upgrade their apartment, lease a luxury car, start eating out constantly. Don't do this. That cushion isn't for spending. It's for leverage. It's what gives you power and options. Let your lifestyle inflate slowly and deliberately, but protect that foundation fiercely. Here's something that'll make you think twice about spending decisions. The average person spends about $35,000 on car payments and depreciation over 10 years. If you instead bought used cars with cash and invested that payment difference, you'd have over $100,000 by the end of that decade. You're literally trading $100,000 in future wealth for the privilege of driving something slightly nicer. Once you understand that trade-off, really understand it, your decisions start changing naturally. Let me paint you a practical picture of how these 5 habits work together as a system. Habit 1. You pay yourself first by automating 15 to 20% of every paycheck straight into investments before you see the money. Habit 2. You build a 1-month buffer in your checking account so you stop living on the edge. This single move eliminates most financial stress immediately. Habit 3. You focus only on the big 3 expenses: housing, transportation, and food, keeping them under 50% of your take-home pay. If you nail those 3, the small stuff doesn't matter. Habit 4. You increase your savings rate every time you get a raise. Got a 3% raise? Increase your automatic investment by at least 1.5%. Habit 5. You track your net worth monthly, not your income or your account balances, but assets minus liabilities, because that's the only number that actually measures wealth. After 1 year of implementing the system, someone making $55,000 has about $7,500 in investments, a $4,000 buffer, and maybe paid off $3,000 in debt. Their net worth increased by over $10,000. They're sleeping better. Financial decisions feel easier. After 5 years, they've got $45,000 invested, a fully funded 6-month emergency fund, and 0 consumer debt. Their net worth is up $70,000. They've become a completely different person. And you did this while maintaining a totally normal life. No extreme sacrifice required, no burnout, just a system that works quietly in the background. Here's another thing that makes this powerful. These habits remove decision fatigue. You're not constantly choosing between spending and saving. The system handles your future automatically, and everything left over is guilt-free money you can spend without anxiety. And this connects to something really important about identity. You're not trying to be disciplined every single day. You set up the system once, and then the system makes you disciplined. You become the type of person who builds wealth, not because you have superhuman willpower, but because your environment makes it automatic. Now, you might be thinking, Matt, this sounds great, but I'm barely making ends meet right now. There's no way I can invest 15%. And yeah, I get it. If you're genuinely at 0, start with 5%. Start with 3%. Start with $50 a month. The behavior matters more than the amount. Once you establish the habit of paying yourself first, even at a tiny level, you've crossed the psychological threshold. Then, as you increase your income or cut expenses, you scale up. But if you wait until you feel comfortable, you'll never start. Look, these 5 money habits aren't going to make you a millionaire by next year, and they're not going to magically erase your student loans or drop a house down payment in your lap. But they will fundamentally change how you think about money, how you make decisions, and ultimately, who you become. So here's where we land. Building financial freedom isn't about earning more money. It's not about getting lucky with investments, and it's not about extreme deprivation. You automate your savings first, you build your buffer, you focus on the big expenses, you increase your rate with every raise, and you track the metric that actually matters. The people who do this end up financially free, not because they earned more or got lucky or came for money, but because they understood that wealth is a system, not an event. It's something you build automatically, not something you hustle for every single day. Start building these 5 habits today, because your future self is counting on the decision you make right now. Trust me, 10 years from now, they'll thank you for it. If this video helped you see money differently, smash that like button, subscribe for more content on wealth psychology and financial systems, and drop a comment telling me which of these 5 habits you're implementing first. I genuinely want to know which one resonates most with you.